Thanks very much for joining me. Let me be very clear. Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill, now on the floor of the Senate, is one of the most dangerous pieces of legislation ever brought forth in the modern history of our country. It is a gift to the billionaire class while causing massive pain for working families. Thanks very much for joining me. Let me be very clear. Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill, now on the floor of the Senate, is one of the most dangerous pieces of legislation ever brought forth in the modern history of our country. It is a gift to the billionaire class while causing massive pain for working families. Actually, I'm wrong. I shouldn't use the word gift because the billionaires paid for it. This bill is an absolute reflection of a corrupt campaign finance system. The billionaires invest hundreds of millions of dollars in candidates and in elections, and in this bill, this piece of legislation, their investment is paying off. So, what are they getting? Well, the top 1% is receiving $975 billion in tax breaks. Further, and this is really quite unbelievable, the wealthiest 0.2% receive a $211 billion estate tax break. $211 billion for the top 0.2%. In that provision, 99.8% of Americans get zero. Further, large corporations in this bill get a $918 billion tax break. That is what the 1% and the wealthy campaign contributors get. So, here's what you get, assuming you're not a billionaire. This bill throws over 16 million people off of the health insurance they have by slashing Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act by over $1.1 trillion. So, $1 trillion in tax breaks for the 1%, $1 trillion in cuts in Medicaid and the Affordable Care Act. Further, it forces millions of Medicaid recipients to pay a $35 copayment every time they visit a doctor. So what is the impact of all this? What happens when you throw 16 million people off health care, you impose a $35 copayment? Well, what the Yale School of Public Health and the University of Pennsylvania estimate is that if this reconciliation bill is enacted, and it's unbelievable for me to say this, but this is what they are telling us, this is what they have studied. If this bill goes through and all these healthcare cuts take place, over 50,000 Americans will die unnecessarily each and every year. 50,000 Americans. In other words, this bill is a horrific death sentence for low income and working class Americans. Further, if this legislation is enacted, rural hospitals all over the country that are already struggling would be forced to shut down. It would also make massive cuts to community health centers and nursing homes. In other words, this legislation is the most significant attack on the healthcare needs of the American people in the modern history of our country. So, our healthcare system is broken, it's dysfunctional, and they make it even worse. And that's not all. This bill wipes out nutrition assistance for millions of hungry kids at a time when we have the highest rate of childhood poverty of nearly any major nation on earth. This bill will also make it much harder for working class kids to receive the higher education they need by cutting education by some $350 billion. At a time when the planet is struggling with climate change, heat waves now all over the world, this bill decimates investment in energy efficiency and sustainable energies like wind and solar. If you are concerned about how the United States keeps getting into never-ending wars, this bill makes a bad situation even worse by handing out another $150 billion to the Pentagon, a 15% increase in an already bloated Pentagon budget. Now, I want to applaud all of the Democrats, every single one of them, who strongly oppose this bill. And I want to congratulate two Republicans, Senators Paul and Senator Tillis, for voting with the Democrats in opposition to proceeding on this bill. But here is something really interesting and quite telling about where the Republican Party is today. When Senator Tillis of North Carolina indicated that he would vote against the bill, he was lambasted on social media by Trump, and he was threatened with a primary. He actually did not do what Trump wanted him to do. Is there anything in this world that is worse than that? Today, Senator Tillis announced that he would not seek re-election. So it is pretty clear to me, and I would hope to every American, that the Republican Party of today does not tolerate any independent thought. One might have believed that members of Congress were elected to represent their constituents, to do what they thought right for their constituents. But that's not what it is in the Republican Party right now. The sole function of Republican members of Congress is just to tell Donald Trump how brilliant he is, how infallible he is, how great he is, put up a statue of him on Mount Rushmore, oh my God. And if any Republican, like Senator Tillis, suggests otherwise, they will be politically destroyed. This is pathetic, and it has all of the hallmarks of the kind of authoritarian society that Trump wants to take us into. Dissent is simply not tolerated anymore within Republican ranks. I don't have to tell anybody that this is an extremely difficult moment in American history. Trump and the oligarchs have unlimited wealth. They have a great deal of power and they want more. But there is something that we have. And we saw that just last week in the recent mayoral primary in New York City. So what you had is one candidate supported by all of the big money interest, all of the oligarchs, but you had the other candidate who was supported by ordinary people. And guess who won? The guy, Mr. Mamdani, who was supported by rank and file New Yorkers, won the election. So I think what we can learn from that is that if we stand together and not let Trump and his friends divide us up based on our religion or where we were born or our sexual orientation or the color of our skin, if we stand together, we can beat the oligarchs. And let me tell you, in this moment in history, that is exactly what we've got to do. Thanks very much.
Subscribe to One India and never miss an update. Download the One India app now.